Brenda Matthews sees an elderly black man in uniform and assumes he's just another passenger to bump. Another name in the system. But what she doesn't know, Colonel Thomas Callahan is a Medal of Honor recipient on his way to a White House ceremony. Stick around, because when the footage hits the internet and VeteranShame erupts, Brenda's polished name badge won't signal excellence. It'll mark disgrace. They thought he was just a number. What they didn't know is the country still remembers its heroes, and now the whole world is watching. Drop your location and the time you're watching in the comments below. We appreciate every subscriber who joins our community. Brenda Matthews' fingers danced across the keyboard with practiced efficiency, each keystroke reinforcing her decade-long reign over Gate C4 at Reagan National Airport. The familiar weight of her golden name badge polished to perfection. This morning caught the harsh fluorescent light as she scanned the day's passenger manifest. A slight smile tugged at her lips. Another full flight. Another chance to exercise her authority over seat assignments and passenger fates. The system pinged, highlighting a Platinum member's upgrade request. Without hesitation, Brenda Matthews initiated the familiar protocol, her eyes barely registering the name being bumped, Colonel Thomas Callahan. 85 Medal of Honor recipient. The metallic click of her mouse echoed as she confirmed the change, downgrading him to 32B. Policy is policy. She muttered the words, a comfortable shield she'd wielded countless times before. Her intercom crackled to life. Now boarding our Platinum and Diamond members for Flight 2317 to New York. The words rolled off her tongue with practiced precision, but something caught in her throat as she spotted him approaching. An elderly gentleman in a crisp military uniform, adorned with medals, one particularly distinctive one, gleaming at his chest. I'm sorry, Colonel Callahan, but there's been an operational change to your seat assignment. Brenda Matthews kept her voice steady, professional, even as she noticed his weathered hands trembling slightly around a small velvet box. A golden ring on his finger caught the light. Something about it seemed significant, but she pushed the thought aside. But ma'am, his voice carried the weight of dignity earned through years of service. I'm headed to a White House ceremony. Surely there must be some mistake. The terminal fell silent, nearby passengers turning to watch the exchange. Someone's phone camera light blinked to life. Brenda Matthews felt a flicker of uncertainty, but squashed it beneath years of protocol adherence. I understand, sir, but our upgrade policies are quite clear. Your new seat is 32B middle section. She extended the newly printed boarding pass like a shield between them. Do you know what this medal means, Ms. Matthews? He touched the honor at his chest, and for a moment their eyes met. In his gaze, she saw something that made her carefully constructed world waver. Not anger, but a deep, disappointed understanding that cut straight through her defenses. A young woman in the boarding line gasped, her phone now clearly recording. That's a Medal of Honor. Are you seriously downgrading a Medal of Honor recipient? The whispers spread like wildfire through the gate area, phones emerging from pockets like fireflies at dusk. Policy is policy, Brenda Matthews repeated, but the words rang hollow in the terminal's charged air. She clutched her name badge, its familiar weight suddenly seeming to drag her down rather than lift her up. The first drops of doubt began to seep through her carefully maintained facade. Type honor if you believe our heroes deserve better. A voice called out from the crowd, followed by the rapid-fire sound of fingers tapping on phone screens. Brenda Matthews' stomach twisted as she glimpsed a notification on a nearby passenger's phone. VeteranShame was already beginning to trend. As Colonel Callahan slowly made his way down the jet bridge, his medals catching the light one final time, Brenda Matthews felt the first tremors of what would become an earthquake in her carefully ordered world. She'd executed thousands of seat changes before each one a small exercise in power. But as she watched his dignified retreat, a question burned in her mind. When did following policy become more important than honoring humanity? Standing behind her podium, Brenda Matthews remembered her first day as a gate agent, how proud she'd felt pinning on her name badge, how she'd promised herself she'd always treat passengers with respect. When had that badge become a symbol of power rather than service? And more importantly, would her authority survive the viral storm she could feel, building with every shared video and angry tweet? Little did she know this was only the beginning of a 24-hour journey that would force her to question everything she thought she knew about power respect and the true cost of blind obedience to policy. Gate agent Brenda Matthews stares at the efficiency dashboard glowing on her screen, its green metrics promising another stellar performance review. 20 years at Skyline Airlines has taught her that numbers matter more than names, that corporate protocols trump personal stories. Her fingers hover over the keyboard, the colonel's military ID still gleaming accusingly on her counter. Maximum revenue optimization achieved flashes across her screen as she finalizes Colonel Callahan's downgrade. The system rewards her decision with a soft chime, another data point in her perfect record. But something feels different this time. The weight of her father's military photo hidden in her desk drawer seems heavier today. Brenda Matthews pulls up her performance history, scanning years of exemplary ratings. Each entry represents a passenger reassigned, a seat optimized, a profit maximized. The corporate training videos replay in her mind. Every downgrade creates opportunity. She'd internalized these mantras, letting them eclipse the values her veteran father had instilled. Her colleague Sarah Chen passes by with a concerned glance. Brenda, that Medal of Honor recipient story is trending on social media, while Skyline Shame is gaining traction. Brenda Matthews feels her chest tighten, but straightens her navy uniform blazer, a shield of professional detachment. Opening her email, she finds dozens of similar cases. Military personnel downgraded their honors ignored in favor of algorithm-driven efficiencies. Each file represents a choice she's made justified by corporate policies she's never questioned. Until now, a notification pops up. Staff meeting, customer service excellence review. Brenda Matthews clicks through presentation slides about market dynamics and yield management. But between the graphs and charts, faces emerge. Veterans like her father, their dignity sacrificed to spreadsheet logic. Her hand brushes against her golden Excellence in Service pin, awarded last quarter for maintaining the highest rebooking rates. The medal feels cold, tarnished by new understanding. She thinks of her father's military pins stored away in an attic box, bearing witness to a different kind of service. The afternoon sun casts shadows across her desk as Brenda Matthews discovers more disturbing patterns. Other gate agents following her example, a systemic dismissal of military honors wrapped in corporate efficiency. Her success had become a template, spreading like a virus through the airline's culture. Research articles on her screen reveal studies about institutional bias against military personnel in corporate America. Each finding feels like an indictment of her choices, her willing participation in a system that measures human worth in profit margins. Have you ever questioned what success really costs? The thought intrudes as she mechanically processes another flight manifest. Her father's voice echoes from childhood. Honor isn't measured in dollars, Brenda. She'd forgotten that lesson, buried it under years of performance metrics and bonus structures, running her fingers over her service pin. Brenda Matthews notices her reflection in the computer screen, efficient, professional, and suddenly very small. The system she's mastered now feels like a cage, its bars built from policies she's helped enforce. Type, wake up, if you've ever realized you've become part of the problem you once fought against. The afternoon creeps toward evening as more messages flood her inbox. Veterans sharing similar experiences, colleagues expressing concerns, all threading back to procedures she's championed. each testimony chips away at her carefully constructed professional facade. Brenda Matthews opens her father's veteran support group website, reading stories of military honors and their meaning. The contrast between these narratives of sacrifice and her daily decisions strikes like a physical blow. Her exemplary service record suddenly reads like a chronicle of betrayal. The office grows quiet as day shift ends, but Brenda Matthews remains surrounded by the ghost of her father's disappointment and the growing weight of understanding. Tomorrow, she'll have to face Colonel Callahan again, knowing that every efficiency-driven decision has helped erode the very values her father fought to protect. Gate agent Brenda Matthews stares at her phone, her stomach churning as another notification pierces the manufactured calm of Gate A7. The security footage plays in an endless loop across every screen. Her own voice dripping with condescension telling a Medal of Honor recipient he'd have to give up his first-class seat. The terminal's fluorescent lights seem harsher now, exposing every micro-expression of disdain that crossed her face during that fatal exchange with Colonel Thomas Callahan. Her fingers trace the edge of her name badge, once a shield of corporate authority, now feeling like a burning brand against her chest. The CNN chyron catches her eye. Airline gate agent humiliates war hero. Her own face frozen in that moment of misplaced superiority fills every screen in the terminal. Each retweet, each share, each viral moment chips away at the carefully constructed facade of control she's maintained for 15 years. The boarding gate printer whirs to life, spitting out another report. The VeteranShame has reached over 2 million mentions in just 3 hours. Brenda Matthews' hands shake as she reads comments from military families across the country. How dare she? Who does she think she is? Her throat tightens as she recalls Colonel Callahan's dignified silence, his medals gleaming under the terminal lights as he quietly accepted his downgraded boarding pass. A group of passengers waiting for the next flight whisper and point their phones raised to capture any further missteps. Brenda Matthews feels their judgment like physical weight pressing down on shoulders that once carried the mantle of authority with such certainty. The terminal speakers crackle with another boarding announcement, but all she hears is the growing chorus of disapproval. Ms. Matthews. Her supervisor's voice cuts through the chaos. Corporate is on the line. They've seen the footage. The phone in her hand buzzes again, this time with a message from HR. The airline's stock has dropped 3 points since the incident went viral. Veterans organizations are calling for boycotts. Her LinkedIn profile is flooded with messages, each one a reminder of how quickly 15 years of career building can unravel. The security footage catches her eye again. There's something in Colonel Callahan's bearing she hadn't noticed before, a quiet dignity that makes her own behavior seem even more petty and small. Her name badge feels heavier with each passing moment, the weight of responsibility she'd wielded so carelessly now becoming a burden she can barely bear. Type dignity in the comments if you believe respect should never be a privilege, scrolls across one of the viral posts accompanied by her image side by side with Colonel Callahan's impressive military record. The terminal's atmosphere shifts as another group of uniformed service members passes through their eyes, fixed on her name badge. Brenda Matthews feels herself shrinking beneath their gaze, the power she once wielded at this gate, dissolving like mist. Her phone buzzes again, this time with a notification that Brenda Matthews resign is starting to trend. She reaches for her name badge, the plastic suddenly feeling cold against her trembling fingers. In the reflection of the gate's window, she catches sight of herself. No longer the imperious gate agent who thought she could humiliate a war hero, but a woman watching her world crumble in real-time broadcast across every social media platform in America. The day's remaining flights loom ahead, but Brenda Matthews can already feel her grip on her position, her authority, her very identity slipping away with each passing hour. The security footage plays again. And this time she can't look away from her own face, watching the moment her arrogance set in motion a chain of events that would destroy everything she'd built. Gate agent Brenda Matthews' heels echo through Terminal C like a metronome counting down her remaining moments of authority. Her hands tremble as she clutches her employee badge, that same plastic rectangle that had made her feel so powerful just hours ago, when she'd denied Colonel Thomas Callahan his rightful seat. Now it feels like a burning brand against her chest. The Heroes Liaison Office's call still rings in her ears. Gate Agent Matthews, do you realize you downgraded a Medal of Honor recipient en route to his White House ceremony? The words had struck like physical blows, each syllable cracking her carefully constructed facade of control. Her supervisor's ashen face told her everything before he even spoke. The airline president is on the line. Brenda, this is everywhere. Matthews' shame is trending. Her throat constricts as she pulls up Twitter on her phone, seeing her name and face plastered across thousands of posts, each one dripping with righteous anger. The security cameras track her desperate race to Gate 32, their unblinking eyes capturing every stumble, every moment of mounting panic. Her perfectly pressed uniform feels like a costume, now a symbol of authority turned to ash. The clicking of her heels against the tile floor sounds different, no longer powerful but desperate, like the ticking of a countdown clock. I remember when this badge meant something. Brenda Matthews whispers to herself, fingers brushing against the plastic surface one last time. When I thought rules were everything. The words taste bitter now. Colonel Callahan sits exactly where she'd left him, his quiet dignity a stark contrast to her earlier arrogance. The phones rise in unison as she approaches, dozens of cameras capturing what comes next. For once, Brenda Matthews welcomes their scrutiny. Her voice shakes as she extends the first-class boarding pass. Colonel Callahan, I was wrong. My behavior was inexcusable. The words feel inadequate, but they're all she has. Your service, your sacrifice. They deserve so much more than my blind adherence to policy. The terminal falls silent, save for the soft whir of phone cameras recording. Someone starts a slow clap, but Brenda Matthews barely hears it. She's too focused on the weight lifting from her shoulders as she finally does what's right instead of what's regulated. A comment if you've ever had to admit you were wrong? Her supervisor appears at her elbow, but Brenda Matthews straightens her spine. I'll handle the consequences, she says firmly, unclipping her badge. Some rules are meant to be broken, and some lessons need to be learned the hard way. The video of her apology hits YouTube within minutes. Matthews' shame transforms into fort. Matthews learned, as millions watch her choose dignity over protocol. Her empire of rules and regulations crumbles, but in its place something better rises, understanding humanity, and the recognition that sometimes being right means admitting when you've been wrong. Type honor if you believe in putting people before policies flashes across screens nationwide as Brenda Matthews' moment of redemption goes viral, her journey from rigid enforcer to humble learner resonating with millions who've faced similar choices between rules and righteousness. The security cameras capture her final walk through Terminal C, badge in hand, head held high. She's no longer Gate Agent Matthews' defender of policies at all costs. She's just Brenda Matthews learning that true authority comes not from enforcing rules, but from knowing when to break them for the right reasons. Brenda Matthews stares at her reflection in the terminal's window, the dawn light casting long shadows across Gate B-17, where everything had started just 24 hours ago. Her fingers trace the newly modified name badge, the veteran's service recognition emblem, catching the morning sun. The weight of it feels different now, heavier, more meaningful than the corporate shield it once was. I keep thinking about my father. She whispers to Janet, her supervisor, who stands beside her reviewing the final implementation of the Callahan Protocol. He served in Vietnam. Every time he flew, he carried his medals in his pocket, never showing them, never asking for recognition, just like Colonel Callahan. The familiar printer hum fills the air as the new priority boarding passes emerge. Crisp white, with a distinctive gold border for service members. Each sound now strikes a chord of redemption rather than the mindless efficiency she once worshipped. Brenda Matthews watches as the first military family of the day approaches her counter, their young daughter clutching a small American flag. Her hands tremble slightly as she processes their boarding passes, remembering how those same hands had so callously dismissed Colonel Callahan's Medal of Honor status just yesterday. The algorithm she had hidden behind seems absurd, now a digital wall she'd built between her humanity and her duty. The system said no. Brenda Matthews reflects, her voice catching as she addresses the morning staff briefing. But systems don't understand sacrifice. Systems don't recognize the weight of a Medal of Honor or the cost of the freedom we enjoy every day. She glances at Colonel Callahan's thank you letter, now framed beside the new protocol guidelines bearing his name. The training video plays behind her, showing her own transformation. There she stands, corporate rigid and algorithm-bound, denying a hero his dignity. The footage that went viral under Torture Gatekeeper transforms into something else now. A teaching tool, a reminder that change begins with recognition of error. Her father's military photo sits on her desk, now no longer hidden in a drawer. Next to it, a simple gold ring, a replica of Colonel Callahan's, authorized by him for their training program. Let it remind every agent, his letter reads, that behind every uniform is a story of service that no computer can quantify. The morning sun climbs higher as Brenda Matthews pins a Medal of Honor recipient's boarding pass to their new Wall of Honor, the first of many to come. Her eyes drift to the terminal's American flag, remembering how she once saw it as mere decor. Now it pulses with meaning, with stories, with sacrifice. Type honor first if you believe in putting service before systems, she writes in her final training manual entry. Share this story if you know someone who needs to remember that rules exist to serve people, not the other way around. The printer hums again, and Brenda Matthews straightens her badge one last time. Through the terminal windows, she watches a group of service members approaching, their uniforms crisp in the morning light. Her fingers find the new emblem on her badge, and for the first time since this all began, she feels worthy of wearing it. "Welcome to your flight," she says, her voice clear and proud. "Thank you for your service to our nation." The terminal echoes with applause as the first military family boards under the new Callahan protocol, and Brenda Matthews finally understands sometimes the greatest honor lies not in following systems, but in changing them when they fail to serve our heroes. Drop one if you believe in honoring our heroes, she posts on the airline's social media alongside a photo of the new protocol in action. Share this moment if you know it's time for change. Brenda Callahan's legacy.